But the Los Angeles Rams must have thought that the trade deadline was yesterday. They made 3 separate deals. Let's take these one by one. The first of the trades that they made was acquiring Austin Corbett from the Cleveland Browns for Kenny Young and a 5th-round pick. What did you make of this deal?
It'll fly under the radar. I don't think it'll have that much of an impact. I just think it's a place filler. You want to upgrade. You try to get something going, but low on the scale of impact.
Yeah, Austin Corbett has been legitimately terrible for the Cleveland Browns. He's a guy who, we came into the season expecting him to take over for Kevin Zeitler at right guard. It just didn't work out that way. The 33rd pick in the draft in not this year's, but the past year's draft, thought of as sort of a plug-and-play offensive lineman, and couldn't win a job, lost out the starting spot to Eric Kush. And not only that, the team went ahead and made trades for the utterly mediocre Justin McCray and Wyatt Teller to further push the 33rd pick of the 2018 NFL draft further down the depth chart on a bad offensive line in Cleveland. Just a disaster. I have no idea. I know the Rams' offensive line is bad, but is it this bad? Can it be?
Put it this way. We're still blaming Todd Gurley, and we know how good Todd Gurley is. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with Jared Goff, and we've seen some pretty positive Jared Goff football. So this O-line has to be pretty bad if you're making us as fans and observers think twice about guys like that.
Yeah, Austin Corbett falls right solidly in that unranked area below the 77 interior offensive linemen that are ranked. Actually, I apologize, the 77 offensive guards that are ranked on Pro Football Focus right now. Just, not good. You're right, a mess of an offensive line in LA, but I don't know that Corbett's going to be the solution to that. Certainly not the only deal the Rams made that day. They went ahead and sent Marcus Peters, cornerback, to the Baltimore Ravens. Apologies I confused things earlier. Corbett was not traded for Kenny Young in a 5. Corbett was traded for an undisclosed 2021 late round draft pick. Peters traded for Kenny Young and a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, okay.
What did you make of this? Okay, what did you make of this deal for the Rams at this point?
So it's weird because the timing of the deal gives, changes the way, you take it in at first glance. So when it first happened, I'll speak from that perspective. When it first happened, you're like, is this the Rams conceding the season in their window?
Right.
Is this what's happening? Is this, okay, let's clear it out. Let's get ready. We had our shot. This year's looking like it's a wash, and it's time to get ahead of this. So that was my first thought, because Peters is not playing. The year before he was touted. That whole secondary was touted as one of the best secondaries, whatever, and they underperform week in, week out. Bend but don't break. This year playing much better, so not really warranted. So you're like, okay, it's happening. That was my first thought.
Right, and not to mention earlier in the day, the Rams placed Aqib Talib on the IR, ending his season. So you're right. I had the same thought as you for a while. It was, what? Wait, the Rams? The Rams are they're packing it in? They're giving up? Do they hate these cornerbacks this much? Is Peters that much of a troublemaker in LA? Because, we don't hear about it. We knew Peters has some off-the-field issues and all of that, but we've never really heard about him being in any sort of trouble with the Rams. So what's going on? And then you start thinking, all right, they just traded Marcus Peters. Why did they trade him? Let's be logical here. This has to be a cap move. They must have to clear up some space here. And then you start thinking, okay, well, a lot of cornerbacks available. Is it Chris Harris? Is it William Jackson? Is it Ramsey? It can't be Ramsey.
Can't be Ramsey.
It can't be Ramsey. They're not going to give up 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey. How are they going to make this work under the cap? They'll have situations where Goff and Donald and Ramsey and Cooks and numerous other players are amongst the highest paid players in their position. They're going to be in cap hell. And then it's Jalen Ramsey, because of course it is. The Rams get Jalen Ramsey for 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick. What went through your head when you saw that pop up?
I'm like, wow, this is great for Jalen Ramsey. And then that's kind of where it ends if you start to dig deeper into the football logistics. I mean, I don't know what type of impact it's going to have when the woes, as we just talked about a few minutes ago, the greatest woes of this team are the lack of production on the front five, and it's impacting everything else. And that changes the way the defense can approach their game. They're not scoring points, too many 3-and-outs. And now you think, okay, you got this 1-2 punch of Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald is what people are saying. And it's like, of course, this is going to help. A player like Jalen Ramsey always upgrades your team. But at this level, at that cost, it doesn't actually hit the measuring stick on what we would consider a game changer for what the team needs.
Yeah, I think at any given time, and this is sort of how I wrapped my head around it in terms of pursuing Ramsey for the Philadelphia Eagles. At any given time in football, there is one, maybe two true shutdown corners. And when one of those guys is 24 and available, he's probably worth the picks you're going to give up for him, regardless of how much he's going to cost. Now, the situation I think is really interesting here, and I want to get your take on it, is the Rams play 70% zone defense. Jalen Ramsey's a guy who wants to be up at the line, he wants to get his hands on you, he wants to play man. Do you think there will be any issues schematically?
Now, this is interesting because I don't know how much this defense is, this team is going to be okay with the freelancing. Now, one thing Aaron Donald does really well is highlight his skill set while playing inside the framework of the defense. What I mean by that is there's not a lot of opportunities that he takes or individual elite plays that he makes that stop the friction of when you want to stunt, when you want to slide that offensive line down, and when you want to try to isolate another defensive player because you know you're going to get a double team, triple team sometimes for Donald. And when he makes his special play, it doesn't disrupt what the others on defense are doing. Now, a guy like Jalen Ramsey in a position like cornerback, I don't know if there's a apples to apples comparison for that. And I know from what we've seen with Jacksonville that if Jalen Ramsey wants to try to make a splash play or an impact play, he's going to take the risk and freelance. That might not work out with the rest of this defense.
Yeah, an analogy that I've been drawing a little bit here is sort of the troubles Denzel Ward's been having in Cleveland under Steve Wilks' predominantly zone defense. We forget guys fit into schemes. Not every guy is completely scheme versatile. We see that with Ward, who looks completely lost in his own defense. And now, obviously, Ramsey is unique. Ramsey is an elite talent. But I do sort of worry about it a little bit. They're going to have to change things up defensively in order to make this work. They have very good defensive coordinator down there, so I trust that they know what they're doing. But Marcus Peters, and PFF certainly isn't the be-all, end-all by any stretch of the imagination in terms of ranking players and tangibly ranking players' production. But Marcus Peters was the number 14 corner on PFF this year, and he's a zone corner who fits really nicely into what the Rams want to do. Ramsey is not that. It's going to be an interesting adjustment, to say the least.
Right. So, and that's what I mean. Like, this is going to be really interesting with how long this leash is going to be, or what was discussed before the trade happened. If Jalen Ramsey did a really good job of convincing guys that, look, I can play within this scheme and I can still make the impact that you guys brought me over here to make, then, the trigger's pulled. But I don't know if it's one of those things where it's just the darling idealization of like, this is a guy you got to have, when, like you just said, scheme fit. It's not one of those things where I can do all things for all teams. Would love Jalen Ramsey's talent, but we're really going to have to see from Sunday to Sunday what's going to be the impact.
Are you surprised? Well, of course you're surprised. How surprised are you that the Rams made this deal without a contract extension for Ramsey in place?
I don't. Again, it's one of those things where it has to be something up their sleeve, right? You don't do this. Is this the thing that puts you over the hump? And I'll ask you that. Do you think that they really believe that this is what puts them over the hump?
I think they believe it. Now, whether or not that's actually true is a whole nother question, and I don't think it is. I think they have, like we've talked about already on the show, fundamental problems on the offensive line that are hindering the offense and not allowing it to perform to its full function. It's going to help. When you add one of the 5 best defensive players in football to a defense that already has the best defensive player in football, you're going to see a boost defensively. Of course you are. But Jalen Ramsey can't block on the offensive line, and I feel like that's the real issue for LA right now. They're going to have to the LA Rams, a team with Sean McVay at head coach that we think of as this offensive powerhouse, is going to have a defense that is basically shutting teams out and shutting teams down, holding scores down so that the offense can win games. And that's strange.
That's so different and opposite of what was being manufactured the last 3 years, right? It's one of those things where turnovers and more points is what this defense was built to do. And now we're trying to, what it seems like it's being asked is that you're going to have to be one of those low percentage teams where other teams aren't moving the ball on you, a century team, a century defense. And that's not what's going to happen in the next 8 games. So it's going to have to be something where Sean McVay figures out how to get this team on the edge offensively. The ball's going to have to come out quick, and your playmakers are going to have to be ready to make plays on the first level, which is actually opposite of what this team has done so well for so long.
So the NFC West right now, the 49ers are in first place at 5-0, and with every passing week, I feel strange saying this, the 49ers seem more and more real. And then you have Seattle at 5-1 in second place, the Rams at 3-3 in third, and the Cardinals at 2-3-1 in the rear. So the Rams, they're a fluky tie from the Cardinals away from being tied for last place in the NFC West. Do you think this is good enough to propel them to the top, or even the playoffs as a wild card?
No, I actually don't, because I don't think that it cures things fast enough. I think what it'll do is it'll bring some excitement. It might even bring some energy for the first half of whatever, the next game is going to be. But the issue is still the issue. And if you can't run the ball, if you don't have that slasher that's going to get you that 3.5 so that you can set up your play action pass, or just purely bringing the linebackers up to get that midfield second level passing game going that they do so well, then it's all for naught.
I agree with you. I really do. It's going to be a fascinating situation to watch in LA. And then there's all the contractual issues. They're going to be in cap hell, and this will mark 5 consecutive years now that the Rams will not have a first round pick. It's so difficult to build teams, both, keeping a team good and young and keeping a team financially feasible without first round picks. They're going to go, the last time they had a first-round pick was 2016. The next time they have a first-round pick is going to be 2022.
That's scary. That's scary when all your money's into veteran contracts, and you're gonna have to build within. You're going to have to build from really, really good drafting, and now, the core, the fundamental centerpiece of that is stripped.
Yep, agreed completely. All right. Let's take a step back, take a quick break, and we'll be right back.